Don Lemon, the current YouTube streamer, I guess a disgraced ex-CNN anchor, was actually present.
He couldn't even help himself. Damn. Why the ad hominems, bro? Why you gotta look at his face, bro? Damn, Saagar sucks.
At the protest, which has heightened some of the discussion
He's a hater,
around this.
bro.
So we're going to show you some of the clips that has happened, and we're going to discuss it on the other.
So now I want to shift to Don Lemon and the craziness that surrounds what's going on with the ICE protests at the Minnesota St. Paul megachurch, I believe. It's St. Paul, Minnesota church protest investigation. So I just want to start by saying there are 3 branches of government, but unofficially there are 4. And the fourth is the free press. Don Lemon took his behind to Minnesota, something that a lot of reporters were not doing. Went on the ground, started interviewing people, and kind of just taking into account doing the journalism thing. Don Lemon is one of the very few people who has left corporate media and has attempted to actually do real journalism now. You got to give him props for that. Now, these people went to protest this man, I guess an ICE director who oversees a lot of what the agents are doing there at ICE, who's also a pastor at this church. This guy. Apparently, he's the pastor of this church, allegedly. He wasn't there that day. They went and they protested. And Don Lemon, for some reason, is becoming the face of this protest. In my opinion, unfairly. I think it's a way for them to have an excuse to squash media protesting what ICE is doing, but also, like, you know, Don is gay, black, a journalist, and he's on the left, and he's a liberal. Like, they have no love for Don, and using him as the face is going to be the perfect scapegoat for them to do the most disgusting stuff that they want to do and that they want to justify doing, because it's going against the sanctity of the church, so to speak. Which, let me just point out really quickly, there are 3 branches of government. 3. But officially we have 4. The 4th would be the freedom of the press. Our ability to hold people in power who control the levers of government in check by always constantly exposing them to the people. And this man is the head of an ICE agency. The fact that he thinks he's exempt from being protested is crazy. Not to mention, we have a First Amendment right in this country. And if you are out there shooting people in the face and tear gassing babies and snatching old people out of their homes in their robes over the snow, you getting mad about a protest? This is Krystal Ball and Saagar Enjeti. I'm a huge fan of Krystal Ball. She does amazing work over at Breaking Points, Crystal Collin Friends. Like, if you're a progressive and you watch progressive news, you know a lot of these shows, and she's on a lot of them. She is one of those constant champions in the movement, and I don't think I have anything but good things to say about her and her husband, who are just like super champions of the left. Shout out to them, man. Always doing great work. But Saagar, I could do a little less Saagar, and if I'm being nice. You feel me?
Turning now to Minneapolis, there's been a very high-profile protest, I guess, if you could call it, where a bunch of BLM activists who are now part of the anti-ICE movement stormed into a church in the state of Minnesota. The reasoning behind...
He's already starting. Like, the bias, like, this is why I can't stand this dude. He cannot help himself. He's already starting. How Krystal is not, like, twisting in her chair right now is beyond me.
Behind this was that they had found names of ICE officers and suspected that one of the pastors at this church was the leader of a local ICE field office. It did end up, by the way, that the pastor, who they allege was an ICE officer, was not even present there at the time. It set off a high-profile incident. Now,
So he wasn't there. They didn't know that, but he is the pastor, right?
Showdown with the Trump administration. Don Lemon, the current YouTube streamer, I guess a disgraced ex-CNN anchor, was actually present.
He couldn't even help himself. Damn. Why the ad hominems, bro? Why you gotta look at his face, bro? Damn, Saagar sucks.
At the protest, which has heightened some of the discussion
hater,
around this.
bro.
So we're going to show you some of the clips that has happened. We're going to discuss it on the other side. Let's take a listen.
So you can see the protesters here have gathered over here. They're in the middle of the church. In the beginning of the church service, the pastor was speaking, and Nakima stood up and said her piece, and then the protesters surrounded her. But this is a clandestine mission. I think they found out according to them, this is according to Operation Pull Up, that one of the pastors here is a member of ICE. And so here we go.
And we were interrupted by this group of protesters.
Yeah.
We asked them to leave, and they obviously have not left. So.
What do you think of this?
I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship. So,
but there were folks who will say,
I have to take care of my flock.
okay, but listen, we live there's a constitution in the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
Yeah. We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus, because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world, is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me, though.
We're here to worship Jesus.
Yes.
That's why we're here.
Tell you is that there are varying arrays of views on the political situation here. That's
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
I'm going to leave it at that. But there's varying array of views in this church on politics of immigration.
Right.
Recognize the complexity of the issue.
Yeah. Some people don't like what's happening. Some people like it.
I'm not going to reduce it to that. I won't reduce it that simply, but we acknowledge the complexity of the situation.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate that answer.
I appreciate you talking to me. By the way, just so you know, this is what you get with independent journalism that you will not get with corporate media. I'm just here to tell you. So if you're in the chat, if you're with us, support us. Support us. Support us. Like and subscribe. Become a member. Support independent journalism.
So what are my thoughts on Don going into the church? That doesn't bother me at all. Don wasn't there as a protester. Don was there as a journalist. There's a clear difference between you being there as a protester, screaming, shouting, doing that kind of thing. Don actually took the time to interview people in the congregation to get their thoughts as to what was going on. Perspectives that I honestly appreciated, and I kind of empathize with the people who are in the church now, because I know if I was there with my family, I probably wouldn't want that to be happening at all, whether my pastor was running ICE or not. You know, I'm there with my family, what have you. Like, I'm there to get a good word. Only God knows how I'm feeling at that moment. That's just like really crazy, super insensitive. So I personally don't agree with it, but I have to accept it. I want to live in a free country where I get to have the right to protest and have my voice heard, so that we don't have to do things like resort to violence and that sort of thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with what these people did. I personally wouldn't have liked it, but I would have just grabbed my family and just walked out. To be perfectly honest with you. You know, we cannot sit there and pretend to care and be Christians and want to love and do all those types of things, but then watch people get shot in the face and 5-year-olds get detained and deported and people ripped from their families, and I'm supposed to have empathy for you being upset about your church service. That's hard for me, man. That's super hard for me.
asking for people to like and subscribe after accompanying these activists, where he appeared to have had some foreknowledge. This is relevant, by the way, whenever we'll get to some of the charges that may be levied against him with the Trump administration. Of all of these protesters who decide, because they suspect, again, they did not even have it confirmed, it's been confirmed now later, that a pastor who was not there was potentially a leader of the local ICE office, that they decide to come in to disrupt this service, to harass, intimidate, and scream at, including, by the way, women and children. And if anybody's wondering, it was a multiracial congregation. I don't know, Krystal. I mean, looking at this, like, I think that the spirit of BLM is alive and well. It's very clear, specifically because it's also a BLM group that was behind this protest. And I've actually been frustrated that everybody's talking about Don Lemon and not about the actions of these protesters themselves, and then the reaction from Democratic lawmakers. So you had the Minnesota State Attorney General defend this protest action, and he said, oh, well, people will have to feel uncomfortable. So he doesn't see anything unlawful here. He actually doesn't think it's a violation of the FACE Act. You had the state Governor Walz of Minnesota put out some mealy-mouthed statement. And it's like, this just seems intrinsic to me. And I remember in our debate, people got mad because I talked about liberal protest norms. This is liberal protest. Like, they seem to believe it is okay. And again, this is a violation, actually, of federal law, at least clear-cut to me, whenever you have the FACE Act, which was written in 1994, specifically says you can't intimidate and go in and disrupt religious worship services. It is unbelievable to me, like, that there is no general consensus and effectively just silence, in the same way that you see many right-wingers be silent on, let's say, the excesses of ICE, to what is something which is so egregious in its form of protest. And it seems completely normalized and permissed, like in the liberal establishment within the state of Minnesota. And the fact that the Attorney General immediately dismissed it, the local police literally doing nothing whenever these people, and again, let's be clear, screaming, making children cry, following them to their cars, intimidation, direct trespass, not leaving whenever they want. I truly do not understand how can this cannot be, like, actually condemned, especially when.
Then you should have a problem with what ICE is doing. Do you live in Crazy Town? If you have a problem with this mild ass protest that's been going on, I mean, I ain't gonna front. Status Quo's been showing some really good footage, but this what they did at the church, this yelling and screaming, we'll look at it in a second. It's yelling and screaming in the church, just a disrupting service, because this dude is a probably a neo-Nazi running an ICE organization, terrorizing citizens. Bro, listen, no, I don't know. You can't expect me to feel bad.
This already happened in 2020, and there was a massive backlash against it. So I really actually want, like, I don't understand. And as somebody who swims in this world, like, what is happening here? Like, how is it that this is completely permissive? And it's just like, oh, our side is good, so they can do whatever they want. The Minnesota State Attorney General is making a big stink about political, or non-prosecution or whatever in the Renee Good case. Immediately comes out and says that this is totally fine, especially in a state where you had a shooting very recently in church. Like, how could you possibly try to encourage this type of behavior? I just don't get it.
So
all he wanted to do was air out his grievances. Like, I'm just glad they let him get his shit off, because, like, look at it. Like, I mean, literally, look at his face. Like he literally can't wrap his head around it, because he's such a chill for status quo billionaires and Republicans, and Saagar probably literally has never had to do anything hard in his life or deal with anything seriously hard in his life. And I know that's probably a stretch to say about somebody that you don't know, but I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. That face, look at that face, the look on that face, that doesn't show me, that doesn't, people are suffering outside, and you really can't wrap your head around it, even though you're seeing it. No.
Let's separate a few things out.
And that's why I don't want to talk about Don Lemon, because, I'll get to that.
But we do need to talk about Don Lemon, because that's what they're...
He wants to talk about Don Lemon because he's happy Don Lemon, a black man, got fired. His anti-blackness just can't, it just cannot wait to come out.
focused on, and the administration is threatening to charge him specifically with FACE Act and also with the KKK violation, which is insane.
Correct.
So I watched a good bit. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched a good bit of his stream. And to be honest with you, it was genuinely good. Like it
in
was
what way?
Like, I mean, we played a little bit of it here. He was tipped off by the protesters that they were going to do this action. Okay. As a journalist, and no doubt he has a perspective. That doesn't mean that he isn't a journalist, right? So as a journalist, he goes in, he documents what they're doing. As you saw, he spoke with the pastor, he spoke with parishioners. He at times was asking them challenging questions, but he also asked those challenging questions of the protesters as well. So of course you come away with a sense of where Don Lemon is on the issue. But for me, it was genuinely valuable to watch his stream and to hear from the parishioners themselves. Because if you do just come at this from either a right or a left perspective, then you're going to have a very flattened view of the human beings involved. But, it actually gave me sort of more texture and more context to be able to think about whether this was a sound tactical approach. Hearing like that guy that we heard there who's like, listen, to be honest with you, there's a lot of different political views in this church. There were other people there who said, to be honest with you, like some of what the protesters are saying, like I kind of agree with. This to me is way out of line and it's, too comforting. And I'm very upset about what they've done here. But to be honest with you, some of the things that they're saying might be things that I agree with.
Sure.
So, in terms of as a journalistic endeavor, like I think you should like and subscribe. He's on the ground in Minneapolis. He is actually tracking what is going on here and giving you a window in that is not just caricaturish.
Well,
so the idea.
If you get a chance, please watch Don Lemon's coverage. It's extremely valuable and helpful, and I've been enjoying it. Also, check out Status Quo's live stream of their coverage and what's been going on. So a couple of things I wanted to look at here. It's a little bit on the smaller side, so you guys can check it out. Trump officials investigate protesters who interrupt Minnesota church service targeting ICE official. Says, so ICE out, protesters shouted as the lead pastor and the congregants confronted them. The demonstrators said that they were there to protest David Easterwood, who was listed as the pastor at the church and appears to be the same David Easterwood who is the top ICE official in the Twin Cities. He was recently named as a defendant in a case brought by protesters who allege immigration agents who had violated their First and Fourth Amendment rights. David Easterwood out now, protesters yelled at one point. The protesters then moved outside and started walking down the nearby alley. Police spokesperson Nikki Mulson, sorry, I'm pretty sure I messed that up, told CNN on Monday, the incident is actively being investigated as disorderly conduct. She added, okay, Don Lemon facing DOJ scrutiny. Former CNN anchor Don Lemon said that he was present at the demonstration as a journalist and not as a protester after the Department of Justice officials suggested he should face charges soon. I'm gonna be honest, I can't understand why Don will be facing charges either. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I can't imagine why. It really don't make no sense to me. Let's keep it a buck. Don was literally there with a camera. He wasn't antagonizing, he wasn't yelling, he wasn't doing anything. You literally watched it. There was nothing that was done other than him as a journalist trying to get an account of what was going on. So again, I think it's Trump's way to crack down on journalism. We will pursue charges, Dillon said during an interview about the protest with conservative influencer Benny Johnson. She continued saying Lemon could not use his role as a journalist as a shield. Don Lemon himself has come out and said that he knew exactly what was going to happen inside that facility. He went into the facility and then he began to quote unquote committing journalism, she said. She singled out Lemon as saying that he's on notice. When reached for comment, Don Lemon said over email to CNN, "It's notable that I've been cast as the face of a protest I was covering as a journalist, especially since I wasn't the only reporter there. That framing is telling." He ain't lying. You know what I mean? He's not lying. The crazy thing is, Don Lemon really wasn't one of the only people in there. We'll just take a look here.
You're interfering.
Renee Good. 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 Ice out.
See, right there, there's a person holding the mic talking, and then there's another person with the camera pointing right at her. So, you know, I think this is a way for them to put a villain to the story and victimize Christians so that they can weaponize the federal government against protesters and people in Minneapolis. This is really, really simple. This is not hard to figure out. I'm sorry I had to do all these damn backflips in order to show that. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like we don't have a true crisis in this country where people are forgetting their humanity. And while I wouldn't have stormed in the church to protest, and while I wouldn't have wanted it happen to me while I was there on Sunday service, I sure as hell understand it. And I sure as hell don't have a problem with it. Because I believe in our right to protest. I believe in our right to live in a free and fair democracy. And when you have masked psychopaths snatching everybody off the street in almost every major city around the country, that's a problem. Even if you want to say that we did covert operations against certain Americans, you didn't know this and that. Even if you wanted to say that, that's not happening at the scale that it's happening here with ICE. There was no funding to that degree. There was no mandate. There was no specific sociopath named Stephen Miller in the previous administrations telling you to go snatch people from a Home Depot. Those things were not happening. So we are talking about apples and oranges. We are talking about two different things if you even want to bring that up. But either way, I appreciate you guys for watching. Much love, peace and love. Yeah, I really hope the ancestors bless your bones, you know, as old folks used to say, because we need all the help we can get. This is crazy. How is it that now we are now trying to lock people up for journalism? For being a journalist. Do we live in Russia now? The FACE Act accusing Don Lemon of I think they're applying some like old like Klan law against what he did. Like I'm almost positive like almost everything Trump does and Pam Bondi does, the judge is gonna throw it out as soon as they see it. Anyways, for real, peace and love this time.
It's been corrosive, strutting down this muddy road, made more friends than foes. Did so many shows, said yes to a lot of them. Few weeks later, I don't hear peep out of them. You gotta stay focused on goals, don't ever switch up. Keep applying pressure while these other artists hiccup. Drift up from the socks to the cloth, that's on my head top. Trying to stay close to my people like I'm the red body. Think that I'm Jedi mind tricking, it's just me. Is it hard for y'all to understand the world just to love what he?